Today we're checking out the REVR TA9. Actually don't know a ton about this company, but this is actually a really cool looking bike. Oh my gosh, man, just wait till you guys see this paint. It's so cool. Such cool paint. I can't wait to show you guys. But first, they give us this box inside of that box. And inside this box, in a box, we have, looks like our headlight, our REVR branded headlight. That's pretty unique. I've never seen this style of headlight on an e-bike before. It's even got reflectors in there like a car headlight does. And our second box within a box contains this really nice REVR branded toolkit. Wow, that's awesome. That's really cool to see that, you know, in case you break down or have to adjust something on the trail. And I don't think this includes a built-in taillight because they give us one right here. They also give us some pretty good specs on this bike. You get a Bafang 750 watt hub motor in the rear. They also give you some nice Kenda tires, hydraulic brakes. And that is the bike. I'll show you guys how the paint looks right now. We get our front wheel off of here. Got a pretty standard 26 by 4 inch wheel here with Kenda tires and a 203 millimeter Tektro disc brake here, which is awesome to see name brand like that. You also have holes here cut out, which I'm assuming is for weight reduction. And our seat was also attached to that wheel, and it is a REVR branded Velo Plush seat. So I don't know, this feels pretty thin. I'm not sure how comfortable it's gonna be. Not exactly sure what seat this is, but it smells good, I guess. All right, I know I've been putting it off, but look at this paint. It is so cool in this purple, blue metallic, and it's got a ton of flake in it. Hopefully you guys can see that. Of course, it looks even better in person, but I think on camera it even looks pretty good. And check this out, they give us a D&M air shock in the rear, which is just awesome. We get Tektro hydraulic brakes, Bafang hub motor. And wow, it looks like we actually have to install our own crank arms down here too, which is something that I've never seen on an e-bike that I've tested out before. They give us a water bottle mount down here too, which I'm assuming you could put another battery on, but pretty tight clearance here, so I don't know. They also do give us a 3 amp charger for this 48 volt battery that's built into the frame here. Get our keys off so that we can get our battery off the bike. Goes in there, you twist it, and there's a little latch down here so that it doesn't just fall out of the frame like that. This is a heavy battery, man. This is one of the heaviest e-bike batteries I've ever felt, and it's only a 20 amp hour battery, which is a lot of capacity, but I felt other bikes with batteries that had the same amount of capacity but weren't as heavy as this. It says that we're about halfway charged on our battery now. I know it's really boring to talk about packaging and stuff, but they actually did a really good job packaging this bike. I've had multiple bikes this year that have come actually pretty damaged in shipping, so it's nice that they take the extra time and cost to, you know, give you some decent packaging on this thing, because the last thing you want is to spend all this money on a nice new e-bike and then have the paint damaged or things broken, especially on a bike with paint like this. Trust me, FedEx does not care about what's in the box. It could say fragile, it could probably say nuclear bomb on the box, and FedEx would still throw it around. All right, so we got everything assembled on this bike, and man, what a cool looking bike. Just such a mean stance. I love how this thing is, and it's actually pretty small for a 26 by 4 inch fat tire mountain bike like this. I'll show you guys how I look sitting on it in a second, but here up at the front, we have our Tektro hydraulic brakes, which I showed you guys earlier. They are a 4-piston, which is super nice. Should get this thing stopped really, really well. We've got dual crown forks here, which are adjustable. You've got your preload. You also have your compression adjustment. There's no air adjustment or anything on these, but still really nice to have dual crown forks on a bike like this. And we've got our headlight here, which I'll turn on in a second, but you want to make sure when you're assembling this thing that you assemble it up here instead of down here, because when I had it down here, this was hitting the wheel, which is not good. So you want to make sure that you have it up here so that it doesn't bounce into the wheel when the suspension, when you hit a bump or something. We have our battery in the middle here, which I showed you guys earlier. We've got this cool chrome REVR logo here, and then we've got our really, really awesome paint, which I showed you guys, which is a blue, purple, pearlescent paint. And then we have our D&M air shock in the middle here, which just from sitting on it the first time, it actually doesn't really compress that much. It's not the softest rear suspension, which is really surprising, especially for a D&M air shock like this. I think it might be due to the linkage on this. It doesn't look like it's the most efficient angle to be, you know, articulating that rear wheel. But I'm not really sure yet. I haven't ridden it, so we'll see how it is when we're out on the road on this thing. Here's our seat again, which is pretty low for me right now. I can flat foot this bike right now, and I don't even have the seat all the way down, but it is adjustable like that. Also says that this is a class 2 bike 750 watts, 20 miles an hour, which technically is true. So this is a legal bike. And of course, we have our pedals here, and I think this is a cadence sensor, not a torque sensor. And this definitely is a bike that you're gonna be wanting to pedal. You know, it's very well laid out for that. And then on the rear, we have our 4-piston Tektro hydraulic brakes, same as in the front. Got a nice Bafang 750 watt hub motor on here, which is nice to see a name brand like that. Then we have an 8-speed gear set in the back on here and a Shimano Altus derailleur. And you can charge this battery on the frame like you can see here. And then we also have our key on this side. You can see you can open that up, and then there's a little on-off switch in there hidden away. Up here on our handlebars, we have our power button, which turns the display and everything on. We hold our up button to turn on our headlight, which you can see that's how it looks right there. Decent, it's not very wide, but it should be good enough for riding around at night. One cool thing about this display is that it automatically adjusts your brightness. You can change it in the settings. You can get into the settings by holding down the up and down button. And then to change the top speed on this bike, you go to P08. So to change the top speed, you have to set it at exactly 67. Nothing else is gonna raise the top speed except that number for whatever reason. And it's not a full color display, but there is some yellow accented on there, which is nice to see. And then if you hit the power button, we can get our trip, our voltage, and our time that we've been riding. And then of course our odometer on here too. It tells us when our headlight is on, and it also gives us a battery bar there. We get 5 pedal assist levels. And one nice thing about this controller here is it's backlit. So that's super nice. You'll be able to see that when you're riding at night. We've got our Tektro hydraulic brake levers up here, which feel really, really good. And then we've got a nice rubberized full twist or quarter twist throttle on here. We've got our Shimano Altus 8-speed shifter right there as well, which is nice to see. There's no USB port on the display or controller here to charge your phone up. So this is how I look standing next to the REVR TA9. This is actually a pretty small bike for a 26-inch fat tire bike like this. I'm gonna adjust the seat up just a little bit because when I was sitting on it right now, it's a little bit short. I could easily flat foot it. We'll have a seat on this thing, and the seating position feels pretty good. I love the fact that obviously you can adjust it, but the one thing that's weird is that the rear suspension on this just doesn't feel like it's doing much, which is strange on a bike with a D&M air shock. You'd think that it would be super soft. So I don't know if it's the shock or again that the geometry of how the suspension linkage is set up. So that's kind of weird, but overall, you know, you have kind of a mountain bike style seating position here. You can kind of be hunched over. Everything feels really close. I feel very close to the handlebars, and I'm not having to reach out too far. So the riding position on this bike is actually really comfortable for me at 5'9", and I do weigh 150 pounds. Since you weirdos are always asking me how much I weigh in the comments, you weirdos. But overall, I mean, feels really good for my size on here. Front suspension, pretty bouncy, but that rear suspension just doesn't really do much. So I did adjust this to add in a little bit of air to get it up to about 120 PSI. So right now the price on REVR's website is about $15.99, I believe. Any discounts I can get you guys are going to be in the description, of course, but it is a little bit on the pricey side. That is kind of expensive for a bike like this, but I think it is a bit justified since they do use name brand components. They use Tektro hydraulic brakes, they have Kenda tires, they have a D&M air shock, a Bafang hub motor. So I think that the price is a little bit expensive, but I think it is justified. But of course, we're gonna have to see how this thing does on the road before we can speak on if it's worth it or not. So why don't we go ahead and get this thing out on some trails, out on the street, and see how it does out in the real world. All right guys, so out here on the REVR TA9, the bike with the crazy paint job. Man, this thing is, it's a really cool bike. I love how these 26-inch fat tire bikes look, especially with the dual crown front forks like are on this one. I just love the stance. I love how aggressive they look. And I really like how this bike looks without fenders. And it obviously doesn't come with any fenders either. I'm not sure if it's an option. I would assume that they have an option to add on fenders on this bike, but they don't. They didn't send me any, so you have to look at the website to see. But overall, this feels really great. It's a 26-inch fat tire mountain bike. Like, it just feels really good. It's a pretty quick bike too. It gets up to about 28 miles an hour, and the speedometer on this thing is very accurate. As you guys can see, it's matching up pretty much perfectly with the GPS here. Let's do a 0 to 20. I'm gonna flip around because this is quite the headwind that we're going into right now. So let's just go from a complete stop. We can go off of the built-in display because it's accurate. 3, 2, 1, full throttle. 13, 14, 16, 17, 20. And so out of the box, this thing does come limited to 20 miles an hour also, and I showed you guys how to unlock it back in the garage, but you have to set that setting to exactly 67 miles an hour, or else it's just not gonna ever go over 20 miles an hour on throttle for you. So since this is a bike that you're probably gonna be pedaling, why don't we use some of the gears here? So looks like I'm in first gear right now. I'm in pedal assist 0. And so that's going to be completely on my own for pedaling this thing along. Pedal assist 1, not really giving me anything here. I'm in second gear now, pedal assist 1. It's really not assisting me too much. Shift up a gear and then shift into pedal assist 2. Now I can feel the power kind of taking me a little bit more. Looks like we're going about 11 miles an hour on here. It actually doesn't look like it limits the throttle. It's letting me kind of accelerate up past 20. So there's no speed limiters on each pedal assist like on some bikes. But on pedal assist 2, just pedaling along here in third gear, it's a really nice pedaling experience. I could move this seat up a little bit and obviously I'd be able to put more power down. But just for how I ride these, mostly on throttle, maybe a little bit of light pedaling on a bike like this. But I usually have it up in a higher pedal assist number. So looks like it's maxing us up just about 12 miles an hour. I can't really tell if this is a torque or a cadence sensor. It's kind of giving me a little bit of power if I'm pedaling slower, and if I'm pedaling faster, it's giving me a little bit more. So I'm not sure if this is a torque or a cadence sensor. I'll have to look on the website. But either way, it feels really good. It feels pretty natural. It's not going to throw you off the back. And handle that bump just fine. Switch up a gear and go into pedal assist 4. And yeah, it's giving us a lot more power now. So now I'm pedaling along in 8th gear, and it feels like it's not giving me all the power. But then when I try to put some more power down on here, it feels like it's giving me all the power when I actually pedal down hard. So I think this might be a torque sensor on this bike, which is really, really awesome. And then it was capping us out at about 20 miles an hour there. And then on pedal assist 5, it'll get you up to its top speed. And this bike is actually geared really well. I'm pedaling now at the top speed of 28. And I actually feel like I'm still putting in a little bit of input into the pedals here. So that's really nice that they took the gearing and they got the gearing right on this thing. But overall, if you're gonna be pedaling this bike, this is a really comfortable bike to pedal. So one thing that I am noticing is that the connector for the motor down there is actually kind of getting in the way of me pedaling here. I'll kind of show you guys how that looks here. You can see my rear leg, You can see my foot is hitting that connector for the hub motor in the back there. And I guess it could be hitting the frame too if I was any closer to that. But that's something that you got to keep in mind. You can obviously just zip tie that. Not too big of a deal. But that's just something that I noticed. I felt my foot hitting something on the back there, and that's what it was. Going over these bumps here, it's not the most refined ride. It's actually pretty bumpy on here, especially since you do have air suspension in the rear. The front fork is decently soft. It feels pretty good. But I wish it did have a little bit softer suspension on here, but overall this is way better than a hardtail, and you know, it's not too bad on these trails. This seat is also pretty thin. It's not super cushioned. It is wide and pretty supportive, but I would definitely upgrade the seat if I was gonna be riding this thing as my only bike. All right, so let's hit the off-road section here, and we'll do a little bit of a hill test here and see how this is. This is a 750 watt hub motor on here. I don't think they list the peak power on this. It definitely peaks way higher than 750 watts because this is a surprisingly torquey, powerful motor, which, you know, you'd hopefully expect for a bike that's 1,600 bucks like this. We'll try and do throttle only, but I know it's not gonna make it up throttle only. Actually, it almost made it up completely on throttle only. Wow. See, this is actually a pretty powerful bike. And especially since it's relatively lightweight with its aluminum frame. Like, it's not a lightweight bike by any means. You would not want to be pedaling this thing without assist for too long. But, you know, it's a relatively lightweight bike for an e-bike since it has that aluminum frame on here. So taking it on this grass trail here, that rear end feels really stiff over bumps. It's kind of disappointing that the air shock doesn't iron more of these bumps out. And I think that my theory is that it's the geometry of how the suspension is, because I have a similar air shock on other bikes and it's been very, very plush, very, very soft. But on this bike, it just doesn't seem like there's a whole lot of travel in the air shock in the back here. I can definitely see it working and doing its thing, but it's just not a ton of travel. And also I think the geometry is holding it back of how this whole rear suspension articulates on here. So if you're gonna be standing up and pedaling this thing, as, you know, a mountain bike or something and going on technical off-road stuff like this. Like for this, it's totally fine because I'm standing up. A lot of my legs are taking the shock absorption. But if you're gonna be riding this thing just sitting down like this, using throttle only, then it's gonna be a lot more rough. Plus this seat doesn't really help either. It's a pretty firm seat actually. So speaking of that rear suspension, one thing that I actually did, because I took this thing out for a little bit of a test drive right after I unboxed it, and I noticed that the rear suspension was just pretty bumpy. It was way more bumpy than it should have been for an air shock. And one thing that helped a little bit was actually just lubricating all of these pivot points here. That definitely helped get a little bit more travel out of the suspension. You can see, I mean, it's traveling down quite a bit here, but that was definitely one thing. It was very stiff out of the box, and that was one thing that helped me get a little bit better feel out of the suspension. But man, this is such a cool looking bike. I love how this thing looks in the sun, and just the paint and everything looks so sick, man. I love how this looks. I love how it's like this bluish purple color here. There's a lot of flake in this thing. It's kind of like a speedboat type of paint job almost, but you know, it looks kind of cool on a bike. And if you're into a more flashy type of style on your bike, then this is going to be a really cool option for you. Overall, the paint feels pretty even. The clear coat does feel like it kind of is a little bit more thin up here. I can kind of see it's a little bit more matte right here as well. But everything else on the frame feels good. It's just this one spot up here, kind of, there's a lot of sparkle on here. It just looks like they might have not got as thick of a layer of clear coat on there. But you know, just such a cool looking bike. Like I said, I love how these bikes look. The stance on these things looks so mean and aggressive. And this seat also has like a handle back here too, which is a cool feature. I don't know if that's for helping you pick the bike up, but or move it around and stuff, but that is pretty cool to see that on there. But you know, this front suspension too isn't necessarily the softest, but I do love how a dual crown front fork looks on a bike like this. Overall, I don't really know how you'd categorize this bike. Like, is it a mountain bike? Is it a road bike? You know, it does pretty decent off-road. It feels good on road and everything, but it's not the softest ride. Like, I don't really know how you'd classify this bike, but it is a really cool looking bike. And I would say that it's probably more of a road bike, honestly. Yeah, you know, this is a fun little bike if you do want to take this thing off-road. You got the knobby tires and everything. This bike is a lot of fun to just rip off-road like this. Wow, that's a lot of fun, man. So we've gone about 4 miles on this ride so far. It is saying that we have 4 out of 5 battery bars left right now. So hopefully we get some good range out of this bike too, because you know, it is a 20 amp hour battery, 750 watt motor. You should be getting some good range. This isn't the most powerful bike in the world, but you know, 20 amp hours on a bike like this should be really, really good. I'm really happy with the display on this bike too. It actually looks really good. It gives you a lot of good information. You obviously have your pedal assist level on here. You have your odometer as well. You have a trip computer. You have your voltage on here, which I always love when bikes show me the voltage that I'm at, because sometimes you can't trust the battery bar. And it is saying that we are at 52.1 here under no load, and then it sags down to like 50 when I'm on full throttle here. But then you also have a timer and back to your odometer. So it is really nice to have a good looking display like this, and it does max us out at 28 miles an hour here. This display has auto brightness too, which is nice, so that you don't have to keep adjusting your display. And I'm assuming it's as bright as it's gonna get out here. I can easily read it in full daylight. It's like 12 o'clock right now, so sun is high in the sky and I can read this thing perfectly fine. As far as I can see, there's no USB port or anything on this display or on the little controller over here on the left. One other thing that I really like is that they backlight this little controller here so that you can see the buttons at night, because sometimes you're riding around at night and you're like, which button's which? Luckily, this isn't a very complicated little controller here off to the left, so you really wouldn't get too mixed up anyways. Just up, down, and the power button. This thing feels really good. That Bafang hub motor isn't too loud there in the back. Really the loudest thing about this bike is the knobby tires on there too. If you're gonna be taking this thing on the street mostly, you're probably gonna wanna get some good street tires for this thing. No turn signals on this bike, and no rear taillight for that matter either, which is kind of strange on this style of bike. I really don't know why they can't figure out how to put a rear taillight on a frame that looks like this. I reviewed a good amount of bikes that were this style, and most of them don't have a rear taillight, especially the ones without a rear rack or rear fenders and stuff. It seems like they just don't want to put a rear taillight on there, which really isn't the biggest deal in the world. But if you're gonna be riding this thing on the street, it is nice to have a brake light, and it is nice to have the ability to have turn signals as well. Now they do include a battery operated taillight in the box, but it's just not the same as having a built-in one. You never have to worry about charging it. Like, it's just not as convenient, especially for the money, for around 1,600 bucks. You know, it would be nice to have a built-in taillight, but it is what it is. It's not the biggest deal in the world. Overall, just riding around the street like this, it's a really comfortable bike. I love the riding position. You know, it's a little bit hunched over. I could have a little bit more of an aggressive position too if I upped the seats a little bit. These brakes feel so good. I'll just do a little panic stop here for you. Man, they feel really, really good. They're 4-piston in the front and rear, 203 millimeters on the front and rear too, which is just awesome to see. Bike manufacturers are investing in safety stuff like that, because it is important to have a good set of brakes on your bike, especially when you're going almost 30 miles an hour like this. We'll do another stop from 28 miles an hour on these brakes. Locking that back tire up. Yeah, this thing just feels awesome. So I really think one of the main selling points of this bike is that paint, funny enough. You know, this is a really, really cool paint job on this thing. And there's a million bikes that look similar to this one, you know, 26 by 4-inch fat tire bikes, kind of this mountain bike layout. There's a million and one bikes like this out there, but really a big differentiating thing of this is that it's got this awesome paint job. They also do have this in another color. They have it in this green color like this too. It changes from like green to blue, I think. But I opted for this one because I thought it was gonna look really, really cool, and I was not disappointed by it. But you know, if you want something that's actually a relatively small 26 by 4-inch fat tire bike, because a lot of times these 26 by 4-inch bikes are gonna be great for bigger people. But this one, they only have one frame option too. But this one, the frame is relatively small on this, and you're not sitting up very high. Like, I can come to a stop right here, and you know, I can pretty much flat foot this thing. I could lower the seat down and be able to completely flat foot it. But even if you're a shorter rider, like, you're gonna be able to ride this thing. I took this out the other night to ride it a little bit, and I tested out the headlight, and the headlight is pretty decent. It's not the brightest in the world, but it'll get the job done, especially for, you know, visibility so that other people can see you. There's also no built-in horn on this headlight, which is kind of weird, especially for the price. You know, you'd think that they could include a horn. There's bikes that are like half the price of this and they come with a horn built into the headlight. The throttle feels really good. It's actually a really short travel on this throttle. I'm used to bikes where you gotta like crank it out, but on this throttle, it's a really, really short travel. I've really never heard of this company REVR before, and when they reached out for me to test one of their bikes out, I picked this one just because the paint looked so cool on this thing. And this bike isn't perfect by any means. You know, it is a little bit harsh with this ride. You can hear in my voice, oh man, it's really getting to be fatiguing at this point. But overall, for this style of bike, I think it's gonna appeal to a lot of people. And if you're looking for a bike in this style and you're looking for something that's unique and you're gonna stand out a little bit, I think that this REVR TA9 could be a pretty good option. All right guys, so finishing up our ride here on the REVR TA9, I think that this is such a cool bike. There's a lot of 26 by 4-inch fat tire e-bikes that are kind of like this, but I haven't seen many with as cool of a paint job as this one. And as silly as that sounds, that could be a selling point for you. If all your friends got the same old boring e-bike paint and you want to stand out a little bit, then something like this could really be a genuine selling point for you. Really good battery life. We've gone about 17 miles now, so I would say you could get at least another 5 to maybe even 10 miles out of this thing, if you were, especially if you were pedaling on this and helping the bike out. So really, really good battery life. Very impressive for a bike like this. Decent hill climbing ability, as you can see. Feels really good. And that's the thing, even when the battery is getting low like this, you still feel like it's still a pretty strong bike, especially going up that hill. It was giving us some power still. So for all the things that I'm not a big fan of on this bike are the ride. The ride quality, especially on the rear with this rear seat and everything, it's just not the best. You could get a suspension seat post. There's not really much you can do about the shock. I mean, it already has a really good air shock on there. So, you know, besides spending a lot of money on really expensive components, there's not really too much that you can necessarily do to fix the ride. So, you know, that's kind of a bummer. You see this thing and you'd think that it would ride pretty decent, but it really doesn't. And that's kind of a negative on this thing, is that the ride quality is just not the best. Another thing that I'm not a huge fan of either is the fact that it doesn't come with a rear tail light built in. You know, they do include that one that you can throw in that's battery powered. But you know, it's just, I don't want to have to worry about charging stuff. I just want it to be connected to the bike battery so that it works when the bike's on. Some things that I do like about this bike. First one obviously is the paint. I love the paint. It's very unique. It looks awesome. It looks like a pretty high quality paint job on here. Also like the brakes on this. These Tektro brakes are just incredible. They stop you so well, and they're definitely more than this bike needs. But it is nice to have something like that on this bike, so you're never gonna have to worry about being able to stop this thing. Display's awesome on this. The controls are really simple and well laid out. You get an 8-speed Shimano shifter on this, which is really awesome. You get some nice comfortable grips. You get a really nice quarter twist throttle here. Just a really well-rounded bike, and if you pick one of these things up, I think you're gonna be really happy. If you do wanna pick one of these up for yourself, you can go ahead and use the link in the description. That'll get you the best price that I can possibly get for you. Of course, using those links does help support the channel. Overall, I'm very happy with this bike. It's a really cool bike. It's an awesome looking bike. It's unique, it stands out. In a world of just regular old 26-inch fat tire mountain bikes, you know, it stands out, and I really like it for that. And also you get really cool components on here like the Bafang hub motor, and you just get some nice stuff for the price. So with that being said, guys, I'm gonna leave it there for today. Hope you guys are all having a great time on your bikes, enjoying the summer, getting some good rides in, and riding safe out there. So see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Take care.